All right, guys. It looks like we're live. We're recording. Um, and I'll post the recording like I did the last meeting. After the
Hello, hello.
meeting, hello. And I think what we can do today to make things go by faster, we can post our favorite passages in the Google Docs document and make sure you put the page where it's located, the actual quote, and your thoughts. So that way we can all read through them while we are conversing. And that way, as we go by to take turns, we don't spend too much time, on that. So I'll post
I'm
a
in the
link to the
car,
Google Docs.
so I can't paste and do all that into the Google Docs right now.
Oh, okay. I mean, you can do it afterwards if you want, you know, but you can also share. That's not a problem.
So who's going to turn in the assignments tomorrow for the group?
Are we supposed to turn in one for the group, or are we supposed to turn it in individually?
I thought it was individually.
Yeah, I thought
individual.
it was individually because it wouldn't make sense for us to. Well, I guess it would, but I'm pretty sure it's individually for us to have
I
just.
thought it was too, but then I saw someone say something about we got to do our assignment, our group assignments. I was confused.
Yeah, you are correct. It is individual. And also, how many quotes are we supposed to have for the meeting? Is it 3 each before we turn in our assignment on Friday, or is it 5 for the meeting?
It's 5 in total, so combined between these two meetings, or combined between both meetings, you should have 5 of the people's passages that they found interesting and 5 of your own.
Gotcha.
Yeah, so it's not 5 from each person, right? It's like 5. It's 5 in total, correct? Just from all the people in general. Okay, that's what I was thinking. All right.
Okay. All right. So what format do we want to go with today?
I guess we can do it how we did it last time. Like everyone just say their passage, we talk about it, and then go to the next person.
And another thing. Okay, no, it's all there. Okay. So there's 6 of us. So who wants to go first?
I can go since no one volunteered.
All right, Rahel.
Mine was on page, I want to say 184. And it was the second the first full paragraph is the unfortunate reality we must face is that racism manifests itself not only in individual attitudes and stereotypes, but also in the basic structure of society. Academics have developed complicated theories and obscure jargon in an effort to describe what is now referred to as a structural racism, yet the concept is fairly straightforward. One theorist, Iris Marion Young, relying on a famous birdcage metaphor, explains it this way. If one thinks about racism by examining one wire of the cage or one form of disadvantage, it is difficult to understand how and why the bird is trapped. Only a large number of wires arranged in a specific way and connected to one another serve to enclose the bird and ensure that it cannot escape. And I thought that was a interesting passage because it kind of basically saying that, people think racism is one thing and it's like, oh, it's just this one concept when racism is made up of a bunch of concepts to form the whole system as a whole.
Interesting. Cool.
I also like that passage a lot because in that metaphor specifically, because let's say it takes 9 wires to create a full cage. Well, some people have 4 wires and they're like, well, I made it out of the cage. I was in a cage. It had 4 wires, but they don't realize that some people's cages are harder to get out of than others.
Wow. Awesome. All right. Well, that's great. So Rahel, when you get a chance, don't forget to put your thoughts on the Google Doc, because no one can articulate what you said better than the way you did. But who wants to go next?
I don't mind going next. I'm just trying to find the page. Okay, page 269. Du Bois got it right a century ago. The burden belongs to the nation, and the hands of none of us are clean if we bend not our energies to righting these wrongs. So basically, he's saying that if we are not actively fighting for what's right, then we are in the wrong. And I thought that was super relevant for today and what happened yesterday and just the resurgence of the Black Lives Matter movement. I feel like a lot of people came to the realization that if they're not helping, then they're hurting.
It's amazing when you draw that parallel, because I was looking at the headlines, and I'm like, wow, that guy got charged for the bullets that he missed, the bullets that missed, and not the one that actually hit and killed the innocent person. And it all resonates. It really does.
Yeah, I can see that too. Like if you're just standing on the sidelines, like you may not be racist. Like you may think that Black Lives Matter and all of that, but if you're just chilling and not doing anything, then you're part of the problem too.
Agreed.
Yeah, sorry, I was preoccupied. I was trying to handle something over here on my computer. You made your passage was very good, and to speak to what she just said, yeah, or what, oh, is it Olajide? Am I
Yeah,
saying that correct? Okay.
Olajide.
I try not to even think about it, to be honest, man, because it's like it stirs up such a rage, and it's like I can't do much outside of I can't do much in that bingeable state, that that state of anger. But it's like I kid you not, a couple hours ago, I reread it on someone's like Twitter feed, and I just said to myself, like, nails, paint, wood, they got justice before, a human at the end of the day. Like that that was when I heard that yesterday, I was like, wow, they want me to be pissed off today. Like they want me to be mad. So I definitely agree that sentiment that, like, if you're not doing anything to help the situation, like she said, like, you might really feel deep down that Black Lives Matter. You might feel, that these people were killed, unjustly. But it's like, I made the analogy last time that we had the meeting. Like, if you see someone getting beat up, or you see someone, God forbid, you walk in on a rape or something. If I know it's extreme, but if you're just like, oh, I'm gonna mind my business, or this is an inconvenience for me to get involved, it's like, do you really care? Do you really want to help? You know, because if I really care for something, like, it'll convict me in the moment. Like, I feel like I need to be of assistance. And so even now, it's like, although, like, the social media stuff, it helps to an extent. Like, I do understand, like, it definitely has its limits, and there's a lot of people doing a lot of conniving things, on there. But it's like, even now, like, the people that were using the trends and the hashtags, and we discussed last week with the businesses and whatnot, it's like, like, where are you guys now? Like, how do you feel about the situation now? You know, I don't know. It's just super crazy. Definitely a
I
crazy
mean,
day.
to sum it all up, pretty much you stand for nothing and you fall for everything. A
But
lot of people, there are a sect of people that feel indifferent to what's going on because they live in they seemingly live in the bubble, where as long as they are in their ivory towers or whatever it is, or in their comfort zone, they feel like it's not affecting them. Especially for me being African and having children that are born American. Well, I may feel like, well, it's not my problem, you know. But what about my kids though? You know, uh, they're American, you know, whether I like it or not, I'm American, you know, they could get pulled over, and you know, next thing you know, illegal search, you know, pretext stop. He could throw something in the trunk and claim that it was there before they ran the search. You see what I'm saying? And before I know it, they become victims, and God forbid another Trayvon Martin, God forbid another Tamir Rice, and you know, Breonna Taylor. It's crazy. I remember growing up and hearing about Rodney King, you know, and it seemed like it was like an isolated incident when you were foreign, when you hear stories like, okay, OJ, Rodney King, and it's sensationalized. But ever since all these recent protests, since for the last 2 years, it just seems like the more attention we pay to it, the more and more we're seeing that this stuff is happening like every day. It's just that it all doesn't get the same kind of coverage. You know, I saw one on Facebook just this morning. This 19-year-old kid who ran a stop sign, scared shitless, and he gets pulled over. He pulls over to the left in front of his mom's house, and you know, and the mom, out of fear and rage, she's defending her son. Tell him not to answer questions, just to provide his identification and insurance and whatever the case may be. And I can understand why she's angry. I can understand why she's being protective of her son. It's the first time he's ever got pulled over. His son made a lot of mistakes. He ran the stop sign, wasn't paying attention, pulled over to the left. Obviously, he was scared. But the police officer could have just de-escalated the situation. She had her hands on her hips where the gun was, and the first question she asked him after license registration is if he's on parole or some ridiculous question like that. And I'm like, are you serious? And it just escalated from there. 6 police cars later, they're still going at it.
of course
And
it did.
in the end, he got a ticket for a stop sign.
Mm.
I was just gonna say that as far as like things happening, and it seems like it's happening more. It's happening more. It was happening before Rodney King. It's just that we never had it on tape. And then we had it on tape with Rodney King, and we're like, oh great, we're gonna get justice. And it was like, no. And then now we have all these things on video, and social media is what's making it go all over the place. And it's still like, oh yeah, we still can't get justice. Like clear shot, you see everything that's happened, and it's still like, oh no, but nah, y'all still not gonna get it. It's always been happening. It's just that now we have more access to seeing things that happen all over the country, as opposed to maybe hearing something that happened like in your city.
No,
You are right.
that's 100%, 1,000% true. It arguably might have been worse, you know, back then, especially if they're, you know, I recently was looking at a video. I don't know if you guys had seen the case with like the officer that was stopping women and like raping them or sexually assaulting them and saying, you know, just going about your day, you're free to leave. I don't know if you guys have heard of that, but it's like something that like that or that trial or whatever happened recently. It's like if it's possible for people to be so scared and timid, you know, to put out information like that now, you know, in the age of technology, imagine back then where it was these small towns, everyone knew each other, the sheriff often knew these families that would commit these acts. So it's like you said, like this isn't new at all. You know, we're just recording it, it's being showcased. Social media is, you know, transferring the knowledge to everyone so everyone has access to it. But before, like the same stuff, if not worse stuff, was going on.
Yeah, and I don't know if okay, I started my bachelor's program back in 2001, y'all, and there was a class that I took, media and culture, and it was just so boring, and I didn't realize how important that class was until now. What happened with Rodney King and OJ is so important because the difference was for the first time the whole world got to see what it was like on video, not just on by someone's account, on video, live in one instance and recorded in the other, uh, what it was like to be stopped or to be chased by the police as a black man. You know, and I remember during the apartheid period in South Africa, what was going on. Oh, it was a far cry from what we're seeing now, but it seems like the more and more we get comfortable with seeing these images, I started to ask myself, is this South Africa apartheid era South Africa that we live in today? When I saw what happened at the White House when those protesters got dispersed and were shot with rubber bullets, and the current president was making jokes about that, you know, and with the cell phone camera, it just changed the game. And now with Facebook Live, I mean, back then it was handy cams. Now with Facebook Live, you know who was watching and how many people are watching. They can comment live about what's going on. And I think that that's going to influence probably maybe the next Jim Crow if this doesn't get resolved, because uh, they're gonna have to, whoever it is, gonna have to adapt to that. And I think they already are with misinformation campaign, where you can take a cut from here, a cut from here, drop some audio and some sound bites, and doctor footage, to suit your agenda and post it out there and let it run wild, and people will believe it. It's gonna get harder and harder to tell what is legit and what is
Most
not.
definitely. You would
I
think,
think
right? I'm sorry, you
maybe
can
we need to
finish.
get, I guess we need to get to a point where the video we post on social media has to have some way of finding it to show that who made it and the fact that it's authentic at
Yeah.
some point.
I recently, we have these discussion posts with these online classes. I recently we had a discussion post about like credible information and whatnot. And I said, I didn't disagree, but my comment was different from the others. I said any information needs to be vetted, and it needs the credibility. I don't care if it came from the president, Fauci, a lover, a coworker, a parent. It doesn't matter. All information, it needs to be deciphered and see, like, is there a bias behind it? Is someone funding this research that belongs to a neighbor company, a friend? Like, look into everything. And I love what you said about the social media. I was gonna say it's a gift and a curse, right? Because it's hard to tell what's not fake, what stage. We had a few things happen in recent years where I think the girl got kidnapped, an actor got kidnapped. If you guys know what I'm talking about, if you know specifics, chime in. But I know recently, um, there was a girl earlier this year. I think she got kidnapped for some reason, like in front of her mom. Like it was on the news and everything. And then come to find out, like those are her friends who kidnapped her or something like that. But that's just an example of like when I saw that, I was shocked. I was like, bro, did she just like right next to her mother? But these are just civilians. Imagine people that have access to this crazy tech. I myself, like, I want to do cinematography one day, and I know what you can do with VFX. I use I use Adobe Premiere, I use Photoshop, After
Green
Effects.
screen,
After Effects,
After Effects.
I literally, my experience is like 3 years, and I can do some crazy stuff with After Effects. You give me a green screen, I could do some crazy stuff, right? But think of
You
these
can put
people.
anyone anywhere
They
and
work
make
for
it.
the government, right? They've been trained for a decade plus. They can show you some crazy stuff. So I like the point that you made, and I firmly believe that social media is a gift and a curse, right? Because although it spreads an amazing amount of crucial information, it also spreads an amazing amount of disinformation, like you said, and it can be hard to uh, distinguish between the two.
I'll make a prediction. In the next 3 years, we're going to see a bunch of legislation that regulates how social media is managed the same way CNN, Fox News, and all the local news stations are being regulated. I make a prediction that legislation is going to start filtering through Congress within the next 3 years, and its use and how you can apply it and how that applies to elections and politics. It's coming.
I mean, even just yesterday, if you were on Twitter, you saw a bunch of contradicting statements, such as some people said that it was a no-knock warrant, some people said they knocked, some people said they didn't knock, some people say that Brianna was in the bed, some people say that Brianna was in the hallway. Like, there's so
behind
much
her, man. Yeah.
Like, how am I supposed? I wasn't there. There was no body cameras. How? Like, obviously, I want to believe that Brianna was asleep and she didn't have to die like that. Like, at least she could have been asleep when she died. You know, that would have been a more peaceful way to go. And as far as the no knock, all of their neighbors said that they did not hear a knock. They did not hear an announcement. But in court, apparently they said that it wasn't a no knock warrant, meaning they had to announce themselves. But does that mean that Brianna's boyfriend heard that? Like, there's just so much of this. All I know is that a police officer killed innocent people and did not get charged with it. And that is the most important fact in the entire. It doesn't matter these little things. Justice was not served. It does not matter if she was in the bed or in the hallway. Justice was not served. And that's really frustrating.
And then, you know, like, as far as the knock and whatnot, like, it's so ambiguous, and there's such a broad spectrum of what that knock could have been. It could have been, you know, and they're in the back room sleeping. Like, so, like you said, the different accounts, like, they didn't hear a knock. But regardless, I saw this post today, and I try and stay away from social media, but it just really, like, I just gravitated toward it, and it resonated with me so hard. And it said, people should not die, you know, for making, I forgot the exact phrase, but it was like, police officers are not supposed to kill people for making mistakes, right? And it sounds like, now in extreme situations, yes, like if someone's threatening someone else's life and whatnot, I got a prompt on my screen, hold up. You know what I mean? Like, obviously there's situations where a life might need to be taken, but in general, like, that never is, like, that's not the mission statement. Like, oh, someone ran a red light, like, blow their head off. Like, you know, like, that's not the, you know, the criteria for being a police officer. And I know some police officers that aren't, you know, they aren't wired to even think like that. And so that was so powerful to me, because it's true. Like, often you hear the other side of things. Like, I don't try and make it black and white, but there is a separate side, you know, that is in the gray area, that firmly believes, you know, that these Black people are like super predators and thugs and just naturally, inherently that way. So when things like this happen, it's like, oh, well, what were they doing? It's like, what do you mean? What were they have like 17 gun holes in them. Like, bullet holes in them. Like, what do you mean? What were they doing? You know, like, I definitely, context is very important. You know, like, if someone's running at me, like, if I have someone, you know, that's a police officer, I don't want them to die, obviously, but it's like, what is the context of these killings? You know, like, let's really decipher, like, did a life need to be taken today?
But to be honest, in y'all's opinion, what do you think is the lasting solution to all of this?
You want me to tell what I think the solution is?
I would like to hear it.
Honestly, bro, like, it's really hard to say, you know, because I have two ideas in mind, right? The first one is more realistic, the second one isn't, right? The first one is what I want to happen. The first one is, you know, justice reform, building back up Black excellence. So getting the fathers out of prisons, make sure, you know, we're staying in school, we're being educated, you know, so that we can provide for ourselves and our kid. Oh my gosh, that dog is adorable. So we can provide for ourselves, um, educate ourselves, build our own police forces, our own communities, not just hoods. You know, a lot of people are from hoods. No, or build our own communities where we know the law enforcement, we know our lawyers, we know our bankers. You know, that's what I believe. Not segregation, but just building up, you know, our community. Like we see Jewish people do that. We see certain Arab communities, um, Asians especially. I have a lot of Asian friends from different backgrounds, whether it's Vietnamese, Chinese, Japanese, Korean. Like their unity that I've seen in high school and even in college. Like one of my friends, like he's building something already, and he's only in his sophomore year, right? So I believe, you know, that economic independence and, you know, educational independence for Black people, well, like I said, it doesn't need to be segregation or anything like that, but you know, just that independence will be able to help us because we don't need to, you know, seek or protest for justice if it's in our communities and we're giving ourselves justice, if that makes sense, right? So that's my first idea. My second idea is a little bit more crazy.
Yeah.
It's the end all. Like nothing is being done. It's progressing into like a totalitarian state, like, and it's getting really bad. Like then it's like I don't want to say I definitely don't want to be extreme and say overthrow the government or anything like that, but like if it ramps up to where I think it's going to ramp up to, it's like, well, I'm not about to like be a slave in an internment camp, you know what I mean? Like that's not happening in 40 years whenever, you know. So my first idea is definitely like I just think it's, you know, prison slash justice system or criminal justice system reform, um, and just electing people that truly genuinely care. And I know it's hard to be able to tell, like a lot of these people are geniuses, they're actors, they can put on a good story, put on a good show. So I know it's obviously hard, but I think really, you know, getting people that are in these neighborhoods, you know, people that are really like they care. But other than that, those are only two ideas I have.
Well, the way I look at it, to come up with a solution, we have to go back to the beginning to how the problem started. And you can't do that without following the money. It all comes down to dollars and cents. Uh, Slavery became a thing because someone wanted to make a profit. Okay. So there is an impact, there is a financial impact to whether or not you have access to slave labor or whether you have access to cheap labor, to skilled labor, or unskilled labor. All these are resources. And as living things, we're going to compete for air, we're going to compete for space, we're going to compete for food, we're going to compete for access, we're going to compete for affection, we're going to compete for a lot of things until we figure out how we deal with that need and how we manage our participation and how we manage who gets what, we're never going to solve this problem. Because at the end of the day, if we keep doing this, pushing and pulling and shoving and whatever, that's how the First World War started. That's how the First War started. That's how the concept of conflict started and conquest started. I mean, this has been going on for ages. Now, the way I see it, like you said, education. The people who are the target of these oppressive doctrines or methods or ideologies need to get educated. And they need to start helping themselves when no one is ready to help them to start with. That's one. Two, community involvement. If you're in the community, you need to realize that you have a power and you have a voice. And you need to start being your brother's keeper, and you need to start getting yourself involved with your neighbor. And you need to start getting involved with your kids, with your mom, with your sister, with your brother. And when you start doing that, you need to start getting involved in PTAs. You need to start getting involved in local elections. When you do that, other things like economic impact and access and social impact and all these things will start to fall in place. I think what's happening is we're trying to apply these high level solutions, and we're not addressing the underlying issues, and everything just crumbles like a house built on a poor foundation. It doesn't matter what you skin it with, it's going to end up collapsing. And I think that's the reason why we keep on finding ourselves back in square one, and we keep talking about the new Jim Crow. You know, oh, wait a minute. 2 people are trying to get in. I was away from the computer. Yeah, so I really think that, you know, okay, Anton. I really think that we need to start from the basics. And my dad used to say charity begins at home. Whatever solution we're thinking of, we need to start in our living room, our neighbors, your apartment complex, your school district, your state, and then nationally. And I'm just go. Anton, you have something to say. Hey, Rahel.
No, I was curious before you got too far into that point. Do you think that conflict is inherent? Because you said that towards the end of what you, or the beginning of what you were saying. Do you think human conflict is inherent? Because you said even with the First World War, right? We have to talk about, if we talk about World War I, I hate saying that. If we talk about that, right? We need to talk about nationalism as well, imperialism as well. You get what I'm saying? So I
Yeah.
want to ask you if you genuinely believe like that competition, and when I say competition, I don't mean like, oh, I'm trying to think of like, oh, I want to do more push-ups than this person, or I want to cook better than the next person, or I want this mate, like whether female or male, like you get what I'm saying? Like I get that, but do you think like this competitive, like I'm trying to think of a better word, like when we talk about war, like that's a different level, if you get what I'm saying. Like me wanting to take someone's life, take their land, is a different level of competition than like what I mentioned earlier. So I wanted to ask you, do you think competition is inherent? Or what point exactly were you saying with that?
Well, so it begs the question, right? Why can't we all just get along, right? And to address your question, whether or not I think that conflict is inherent. Well, first of all, why do people want to fight each other? Well, because we're not getting along. Why aren't we getting along? Well, maybe I want something you have and I don't want to ask nicely. Or I ask you and you don't want to give it to me, and I think I can take it from you because I think I'm stronger than you. Or maybe I think you don't deserve it because I think that I'm better than you. You know, that's usually how the conflict starts. Seeds of jealousy.
Do you think that's taught? Do you think it's taught, or do you think it's inherent?
I think it is taught because I believe that at conception, you're a blank slate. As a child, you absorb like a sponge everything that's going on around you. You learn by doing, you learn by watching, you learn by listening, you learn by what you see around you, and you're taught at the beginning when you're a child what is acceptable and what is not, and you use that to determine what is normal and what is not normal. And what is acceptable is what is good, and what is not acceptable is what is bad. You know, and whoever is accepted in the society is good, and whoever is not accepted is bad. You see what I'm saying? And all that is what helps us make decisions as to, should I do this or should I not do this? Should I spit in the police officer's face? Should I be polite? Should I talk back to my parents or should I be polite? Should I listen to the teacher? Should I not listen to the teacher? Should I curse at you or should I be polite? You see, all these things we learn from what's going on around us. We learn from what we've accepted as normal. And the more, like I said, the more we get used to seeing people being abused, it's just something that we just, okay, well, okay, it happened. But as long as we continue being shocked by it and we continue saying, no, we're not going to accept this as a community, then we can have change. you know, but how we go about getting that change is where I think that we seem to disagree. And I think that's where we keep getting it wrong. You cannot get change through violence. What you get is
Mhm.
compliance. You can use force to try to get your way, but it will only work for so long because history has shown that you keep oppressing people, you keep beating on them, eventually they're gonna fight back, and you be back right back at square
Unless
one
you wipe them out.
unless you wipe them out. And you make sure you it's scorched earth, no traces, no
Hmm.
information, no history, no nothing. Nobody even know they existed. Because if you leave a trace, all it takes is
Just
one person to find it, and the seeds of conflict will be sown again. Because somebody's gonna bring it up. The
yeah.
South shall rise again, right? You will not replace us. You see what I'm saying?
Hmm.
You know,
You said a lot. Yeah, I just wanted to make sure that we agreed on that like a lot of this stuff is taught, right? Because I'm not gonna say specifics because that'll start a whole another conversation. But we've seen different places on the planet where like not much conflict was there until more modern times. And I think it is because it is a learned behavior. It truly is, in my opinion. I don't think you're inherently spiteful. You're inherently evil. I think it's something that's definitely taught. Um, what's the last thing you just said? I think I agree with what you just said, actually. Pretty sure I
well,
agree.
great. Well, what I did is for my passages, I posted in the Google Docs. I had four more out of my five, so I'm not going to necessarily go over each one because I know that there's at least three or four other people that need to share, and I've been known to ramble at times.
Yeah, we're both ramblers.
Welcome back, Rahel. You finally got your MacBook to connect. I'm sorry.
Oh, I can't hear her. Can you guys hear her?
No.
I think
Yeah, I
I
can't
think
hear
your
you.
signal is weak, Rahel. The audio got garbled.
Are you using the earpiece? I can't hear your microphone.
Oh, I think your microphone is on mute, Rahel.
No, I could hear her at first. She just muted it, but I could hear her at first. I think her audio might be.
It's
See,
not
like right
coming out.
now, I can hear myself.
So can you hear me now?
Yeah, yeah,
Oh
yeah.
yeah, much better.
Yeah, it was the pods in my ear were going dead.
Yeah,
So
I
Okay.
figure. Does Michael have a mic? Michael, or can he not talk right now? That's probably what it is.
Yeah, he's
Probably
sharing
can't
his
talk.
comments in the chat. He said, "What you said was right, Anton. Our community needs financial freedom in order to be truly independent and not dependent upon welfare state where the government wants to keep us on." True words.
Because you can even like analogize it to something, right? Let's say you're staying with your parents, and um, I'm trying to think of something. Like, say you're vegan, right? And they eat the. I got random people coming in my room. Deport. Let's say you don't. I'm at work right now. Okay, I got you. They keep eating meat, cheese every day, and you're just like you're spiritually opposed to it. Like you just, how dare they, right? It's hard for you to really have any leverage or be able to really change anything because you stay in their house, you're eating whatever they pay for, they're your caretakers versus you as an adult, you have your own house, your own space to influence. You control what happens there. So if someone comes in your house with meat lovers pizza, you have the right to say like, I don't do that here. If you're that strict about it, you get what I'm saying? So that's what I
Right.
wanted to analogize it to. Like, um, I'm not saying segregation. I'm just saying like if we have the power within our community, we don't have to beg or protest anyone for anything. At a certain extent, maybe it will come to a point where we all need to do that for sure. But I'm saying like the minor things, like I forgot who it comes from, but I've heard it from 1,000 people. Control what you can control. So if we have financial freedom, We don't have to, oh, we're not getting loans. They're not giving loans to Black people. They're redlining. Da 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 da. All these things are extremely true. That's why when I say this, I don't say it in a way of like, oh, no, Black people shouldn't worry about that. Because we are worried about it, we should go create change for ourselves. For ourselves, should I say? Excuse me. Yeah, that's all I was saying with that. We definitely like, even with education, like I have a ton of people that I've heard like, oh, we don't like the education system, Eurocentric teaching, prison to school to prison pipeline, whatever, da da da. But yet they won't sit down and read with their kids. They won't say anything, educational to their kids. Their kids can watch TV all day. They won't show them a documentary. They won't write with them. They won't teach them anything. So it's like, even me suggesting the idea of like us creating our own schools and stuff like that, it's like, do you really like want to teach your kids, or do you just want to have an issue?
So, another thing is, if you were brought up in a home where your both parents were there, or you had a dedicated parent who was willing to teach you things, who was willing to show you what love is like, it's easy for you to put it in. It's easier for you to put it into practice. But if you've never known that, if you don't know what normal is like, and people start telling you that you're abnormal, you'll be looking at them like, you must be crazy. I'm normal. Well, no one has told me that I'm abnormal. And we start thinking, well, what is personal responsibility and what's the communal responsibility? And then what's the national responsibility? Well, it all starts with personal responsibility. We can all take responsibility for what we do, what we are responsible for to start with. It will be easier for us to get other people involved, and it'll be easier for us to hold other people responsible when they're not doing what they're supposed to do. And it'd be also easier for us to know who to appoint to do what, who would be responsible, that we can hold responsible. Because the truth is, no man is an island. I don't care how good you are, you're still going to need someone. You're still going to need somebody. You could have all the knowledge about biology, you'll still need to eat. You could have all the knowledge about electronics, and you still need security. You'll still need to be entertained. You will need to appreciate art. You will need someone to invent the mattress. You'll be sleeping on leaves or on the hard floor. So when we all focus on our personal responsibility and we figure out where we fit, we're all like cogs in this big machine. When you figure out where you fit in that big machine and you recognize that and you start functioning, you can now say, well, eyes, why aren't you doing what you're supposed to do? Mouth, why aren't you doing what you're supposed to do? And they're like, legs, you're asking why everybody's not doing what they're supposed to be doing, but why are you lying down? So I think that as young people, we can't stop the old people who are arguing and not getting anything done from arguing. Let them keep arguing. But the younger people that have longer life to live, right, need to learn from the older people the things they've done right, the things they're doing wrong, and start looking at their lives and starting to see, well, if they don't come up with a solution, it's going to be my time and I'm going to have to come up with a solution. And I don't want to repeat what they're doing, because I'll be headed for the same chaos that they created. So. But I'll read for passage 4, one of my quotes. By 1996, the penal budget doubled the amount that had been allocated to the AFDC or food stamps 101. Similarly, funding that had once been used for public housing was being redirected to prison construction. During Clinton's tenure, Washington slashed funding for public housing by $17 billion, a reduction of 61%, and boosted corrections by $19 billion, an increase of 171%, effectively making the construction of prisons the nation's main housing program for the urban poor. And that's on page 175. That kind of shocked me, because I had no idea that the AFDC, or what was considered welfare, was replaced by TNF during Clinton's tenure. And I had no idea that he thought it was such a bright idea at the time. And, all that money could have gone into public housing. All that money was meant for HUD and AFDC and food stamps and all that, and they repurposed that money for building new prisons. And I find that passage quite revealing because I had no idea that they could do that. And I had no idea that they could do that and everybody would be okay with it. But wait a minute, if you don't know what's going on and you're not aware, how would you even know that was going on? You know, and this happened not in the 1800s. This happened in 1996. And this wasn't done by a right-wing nut like we would want to think, or someone crazier than Donald Trump. This was Bill Clinton that everybody loves. You see what I'm saying? So we have to be really careful when we start calling people out, and we need to start calling ourselves out and holding ourselves responsible, because if this could happen with a democratically elected president who was a Democrat, who was loved by everyone, and we were all seemingly okay with that, and then some 20 years later or 20 some years later, we're going, what the heck? How did he do that? And he's like, oh, I'm sorry, guys. You know, I wasn't really thinking about what I was doing when I was doing it, but I'm really sorry now. By the way, my wife is running for president. You should elect her. So now I get why a lot of people were so angry with Clinton and his wife and the Clinton family. I couldn't get it until I read this book. I was like, well, whatever the Clintons did back then, come on, y'all. It's been 2 decades now. I read that part and I was like, wait, what? You did what? Now I get it. I'm holding myself accountable. But then again,
But if that's the case, then you have to hold everyone else in Congress that was accountable, because Congress was doing more so than the president. The president gets a lot of slack. Up until this idiot that we have in office now, like the president didn't go around doing executive orders and just making anything into law. It was Congress. So it wasn't like, oh, it's Clinton's fault because he was president. Even if he vetoed these things, there were so many Republicans in power in Congress, and they held Congress kind of like how they do now, except they had both houses, that those things would have still passed. It wouldn't have not passed if Clinton, even if he vetoed it. So a lot of things that Clinton did was he knew these things were going to pass, and so did the other Democrats. So they would put other things in a bill that actually help people as well. So it wasn't just like, oh, we did all this negative stuff but didn't do anything. So they found ways to kind of like get other things in those bills to try to get those passed. But it wasn't just on Clinton. Like, it was all of Congress back then.
What specific things do you think they put inside of the bill in order to like combat, you know, such a alarming, you know, legislation? What things did you see that they put in there?
I mean,
or do
it's
you
a
remember
lot
that
of
they put in there?
things. Like, it's a lot of things. Like, if you take the crime bill, for example, they had put things in the crime bill. Now, of course, people found ways to get around it, but they like the main point that they put in there was that because they were basically sentencing Black people a lot harder than they were white people and giving these unnecessary things. So what the Democrats had them put in there was that there were maximum sentences. So it was like, okay, this person did this crime and that person did it. You can't give them one more because they're Black. But what white people decided to do was, okay, well, we can't give this Black person more than 20 years for the crime, so we still gonna give them 20 years, but we're gonna give the white people 10 or the white person 5. Like, they'll find ways to kind of keep finding loopholes within it. But it was a lot of things that were going into the bills, and it's a bunch of stuff, and it would take like all day to really go through it, because I went back and actually tried to look into the crime bill and other bills that people were blaming. But at the end of the day, even if people are upset with Clinton about it, that has nothing to do with Hillary.
Well, Rahel, just to be clear, I'm not putting the Clintons on the spot. What I'm saying is, I'm 40 years old, and I followed the Clintons. I love the Clintons. Well, I thought I did. Well, I think I still do. But what I'm saying is, you're right. We should hold everyone accountable. Congress, presidency, whatever, because they're all elected officials. What I'm saying is, I am shocked that I wasn't fully aware of everything that was going on. And I thought that I was a little well versed as to what was going on around me. But what I'm saying is, until I read that book, there's a lot that I thought that I knew that I did not know, because it forced me to start doing even more research into understanding better what I thought I knew. So I'm not necessarily just putting Hillary on the spot to say, okay, well, well, you deserve to lose because I mean Hillary won the majority vote, and she got screwed on the in the electoral college. You see what I'm saying? But when did I get familiar with the way the electoral college works? I started paying attention to that like maybe 9 years ago. You see what I'm saying? I probably should have been paying attention before that. And what I'm saying is, um, awareness is really important, and we need to really start paying attention to what is really going on. Because in the age that we live in today, with all the misinformation, it's really hard to know what is good information versus what is not good information. So when good information is out there, I think it's up to us, the younger generation, to educate ourselves before we forget what really happened. You know, because we don't want to make the mistake of repeating history if we don't know our history, is the point that I'm making. But I fully agree with you, Rahel.
Really quick, does anybody else need to read their passage? Or are we good
Yeah, I
with that?
think Anton,
I haven't read mine.
and I don't think Deja has read hers yet. Deja, can you hear us?
I think
Deja's
she
at
has-
work, so she can
yeah,
Oh,
only
she's
chat.
at work. She's only listening, so I'm recording for her. Yeah.
Oh, okay, great.
Mhm. But Carmen, you did yours already, right?
Correct, right. So I mean, we have an hour basically. I just wanted to make sure.
Yeah. And Carmen, correct me if I'm wrong. Did you post yours in the Google Docs yet?
I did.
You did.
It isn't.
Mhm.
Go ahead.
And Rahel, I know you said you were going to do yours when you get home on your computer, and I think maybe you're
I already
working on
did
it.
mine.
You did, awesome. So Anton, don't forget to do yours.
Yeah,
I
I got
know
it.
that, yeah, Michael said he'll post his in the doc, and Chris, I'm not sure. Chris dropped off, but I'm not sure. What did he say? Okay, Chris said he'll post his as well.
Yeah.
Okay, so I think for all the 6 people who attended today, I think we're covered. So Anton, I think you should share your passage with us.
Yeah. I was gonna comment more on what we just were discussing as far as like the just politics in general. I used to be someone that was extremely blinded by the idea of Democrat and Republican up until not recently, up until about 3 years ago when looking into both parties. I will say I do understand what you mean. There's a lot of things. I don't remember exactly how many steps, but I'm sure you're aware. There's a million different steps and processes that um, a bill goes through before it can even, become a law or anything. And then even from there, like you have implementation in different states and whatnot. And
Right.
so during that process, you have many steps in which you can veto or add something in because you're not able to veto the bill. So you're trying to add something into it so that it can somewhat combats, So I definitely understand that. I do. But I think as far as I don't really have any comment or anything on Hillary, but I think Bill Clinton at the time, like, was fully aware of the consequences of this bill. And I know you said they were doing the Republicans were, running Congress at the time and whatnot. I think there's other things that happened during that time period that led me to believe that he was somewhat aware of what was happening. And that's why I say, like, as far as the Republican and Democrats, like, I go by policies. I don't just go by the theatrics of the campaigns and what people say or post, or even with the current president, him posting every 2 seconds on Twitter. Like, I don't go by the disinformation campaigns, what actually has been enacted, what is going on behind the scenes. Even when we talk about like sealed indictments for different presidents and different political campaigners and whatnot. A lot of that stuff you don't see on social media. A lot of that stuff you won't hear about in schools. And I just say that to say I feel like most Black people, I've talked to a bunch. I've talked to some men in my family, like when I've talked about Bill Clinton, like someone someone that I know told me that, and this is extremely stupid and vulgar, but they told me like they liked him because he's the only president he knows that's gotten head in the White Office or something like that. And like when I heard that, like I never wanted, like I was like, you're the reason that like men are hated. Like you're a piece of trash, right? And I only say that to say is like, um, a lot of people I feel like we're, especially my people, persuaded to be Democrat, or we think automatically we should be Democrat. I'm not. I don't have a political party affiliation. I vote for whoever I think at the time has their best interest in hand. Now it, like for the most part, is like 90% Democrat. Don't get me wrong, but I also know there are some Democratic politicians that don't have our best interest at hand, that are there for specific reasons. You know what I mean? So I don't want you to think like for Rahel. Am I saying that right? Rahel? I hate mispronouncing names.
Rahel.
Rahel? Okay.
No, yeah, right in hell, Rahel.
Rahel. Okay. Um, I definitely understand what you're saying, and I don't think you should use the sins of previous political parties to try and blame or dissuade people from voting for another. But I do think the things that Bill Clinton did, I think he was very aware of like the consequences behind them. That's the only reason why I was saying or agreeing with what Ola was said initially. Like I do think, you know, we have to look more into, like you said, you went back and revisited the crime bill. Like I think we need to look in depth of what was done, why it was done, what the actual bill says, because some people don't even know. You can literally like read these. You can read the laws, the legislation. You can literally go in. People don't realize they can reform laws in their area. But yeah, that's all I wanted to say about that specifically.
And to buttress your point, you know, we also have to remember back in the day, Bill Clinton, in order to get elected, he really needed those swing voters, those right wing leaning Democrats that the Democrats were afraid would vote Republican. And in order to get their vote, they had to show that they were tough on crime. And so Bill Clinton did a lot of things that made him look like he was tough on crime, that was tough on crime. But unfortunately, it was affecting, you know, a group of people more than it was affecting another group. And that's why what he did, or what was done, what he signed, looks so bad. Grant, you know, like you said, Rahel, the president doesn't make law, but he signs it. You know, but I don't see where he fought against it. You see what I'm saying? I'm still digging stuff up, but I don't see where
Just
they
look
say
into it. Yeah, he actually, like, the thing is, and it may not have been like front news, but it was like, okay, y'all gonna pass this anyway. Let's work on putting this in there or that in there. So he put things in there. It may not have been like, because either way, had he vetoed it, it would have been vetoed without him putting
Right.
anything in there. So it was like, okay, so let me try to put things in here that actually does help people.
Right. Well, I mean, that's one of the reasons why he was loved by a lot of people, and that's the reason why, despite what happened with the Monica Lewinsky scandal, he was forgiven, and you know, and all that. I get that. You know,
Have you
but what
guys
I'm
seen
saying,
that interview, like the breakdown of that interview? I'm big into like psychology and wording and stuff. Have you guys seen the breakdown? I'm just
which
curious. This
one?
is kind of
Which
his
one?
interview for Monica Lewinsky.
Oh, I did not have any whatever with that woman in that interview.
I did not have any sexual relations with that one.
Listen,
I'm super big into psychology and wordplay. I love studying politicians. They're one of the smartest. They're like a different sector of human. It's crazy.
listen.
I just was
Had
curious if you guys had
if
looked
that
into
was me and my
any of his
wife, if
allegations.
that was me and that was my wife questioning me, I would have just quit. Cause you know, my wife asking me those questions. No, I just give in. I was like, you got me, just you got me. Cause he looked guilty. I'm sorry. I still think that he knew what he was doing. I think Hillary knew what was going on. I don't think that she necessarily agreed with it, but we all human. We make mistakes. He messed up. He realized he messed up. But there was a lot riding on him admitting to what happened and not admitting to what happened. And it's all politics. So let's not fool ourselves. But between Monica, Hillary, and Clinton, they know what happened. And to me, to be honest, that's their personal business. I don't think that it concerns us. Unless abuse was involved and a crime was committed. If a crime was committed, then I think it would involve us. But I don't. I mean, correct me if I'm wrong. Was there a crime committed? You know, did
Regarding that, I think like
No.
specifically because it was
exactly?
and it was rumored to be in the White House. But
Okay.
Well, it was
other than
in the
that, I
Oval
don't think
Office,
there
but
was
there's
any.
still not a crime.
Yeah, I
Yes.
don't think there's a specific crime.
So
There's
I think
with
there's
that case specifically.
moral impropriety going on there. I don't think he should have been doing that. That was wrong and all that. But I'm not going to sit here and judge Bill Clinton. I was, you know, and he should have known better. And I'm sure that Hillary let him have it too, you know. And you know, Monica was an adult; she knew exactly what she was doing. And if the president was pressuring her into doing something they shouldn't have been doing, she had plenty of time to speak up between then and now to say, you know what, he put a gun to my head. You know what, I didn't really tell the full story. This is what happened. And I'm not trying to blame the victim here because I still think that she was a victim because you're talking about the president of the United States. But I think that she knew what she was doing. And I think that Bill knew what he was doing. And I think that whatever is the punishment for him for doing that, I'm sure that he's getting it. Probably still getting it, but there was so much focus on that and ate away too much time to where we weren't able to focus on what we really needed to be focusing on. I mean, the fabric, what made up the fabric of America and the dream, whatever was crumbling right before our eyes during that administration that they've spent so much political capital and money and time on the Monica Lewinsky case. And that's one of the reasons why the Republicans held on to the House and the Senate. The Democrats didn't even know how to fight it, But I'm gonna be honest with y'all. I have not finished the book. Have y'all finished the book?
No, not at all.
How
I'm finishing it
far?
today though. But
I'm
no,
definitely gonna be finishing it today. But I have a database assignment that's due tonight. And
yeah.
it's just been whooping my bum, and I had a rough start this semester, but hopefully the next book is going to be different. I'm going to start early and be ahead, but it's really having to annotate every single page after reading it just slows me down big time. And not to mention it's 300
I just read the
pages.
book. I just read the book and then went back and started doing my summaries because I can't stop every page because then I won't really get the gist of it.
Yeah.
In you guys' opinion, which is the best way to approach this? Read first and then go back and annotate, or annotate as you're reading?
I annotate as I read just because if I know I have to go back and read, it's just
Yeah, just get it out the way. Like going back,
like
I
writing a book.
definitely understand going back, but that's gonna
Because
be
it's going to
so.
feel like
See, I
reading
found
it
the
twice.
audiobook version. So I just listened to the audio
Oh,
version first
is it
and
on
then I
Amazon?
went.
Rahel, be a
They
good
actually had it
sport.
on YouTube.
Oh,
Can you share that audiobook with us, please?
It's
Please.
on
I need the
YouTube. If you
link
just search the
ASAP.
book name, like, because
Yeah.
that's what I did and just listened to the book.
Ah,
This
you got the
is our
book.
next book. I got it all.
Oh,
The size comparison
Oh,
is,
that's
oh
beautiful.
my God.
and the appendix starts at like the
Oh, I
180s.
found it.
So
So are we
yeah, so the
supposed to
appendix starts
annotate
at
the appendix as
185.
well?
Even if we do, all right, even if we do, the notes that are, there's no way you can annotate these notes. The notes start at 201. So like, I don't know, are we only supposed to be doing 200 pages? Because I'm not about to annotate notes. It's like notes of
Yeah.
notes. Like, what?
Notes
I'm
for.
not going to annotate the appendix. Like, how do you summarize a page? in
I'll
an
be right back.
appendix?
Maybe
So
we need to
you don't
post that question
have
in the forum so that he can answer it. Because I'm not mad that the book has half of the pages is the content, because that's less stuff for me to read and annotate. But yeah, Rahel, you said it's on YouTube. Just Google the title of the book.
This book, I haven't started the next one yet.
Okay. Yeah. I'll see if that helps. But if I was doing that, then you're right. You could listen and read through the audiobook and then go back and then annotate. If you do it that way, it's faster, actually. You're right. Um, well, I believe we actually even 13 minutes over, but is there anything else that we want to share?
Just a reminder that um, our first presidential debate is, our first presidential debate is September 29th at 9 p.m. Eastern time. So we can pay attention to that. I don't know how they're going to do that really. I mean, I know there's not going to be a crowd, but hopefully Biden will not stutter. And I feel like he's had all this time to really hone in on his public speaking, and I couldn't imagine him coming up on stage and like giving the same performance he did in the primaries, if y'all are paying attention during the primaries.
Yeah, he
But
did
just keep-
horrible in the primaries,
It was really bad.
which was
But-
crazy because if you go back to like the 2012 election, when he did that, Obama had he bombed his first election. I mean, his first debate, and then Biden came in and killed it. So hopefully he comes back as that Biden from 2012 that killed the debate.
Yeah, the thing is, he does have a stutter, and I didn't know that until he was running for president. So I really credit him for being able to be. I mean, he's not a great public speaker like Obama is. Neither is he an orator like Trump is. But I think that for Biden, like Antoine said, we really need to focus on what he has done, what he is doing, and pay attention to what he's saying when he does speak. But between a Biden and a Trump, it's an easy choice. I mean, even for the blind, it's an easy choice. If we all want to be really honest, But I'll be watching though. I'll be watching closely. Oh, the other thing I was going to ask. So we are meeting every 2 weeks. So we've met this week, so we're not meeting next week, so we're meeting the week after, and 2 meetings for each book. You all think that's okay?
Yeah.
Yeah, I think it's fine.
I low key, I had the worst, most devastating panic attack last Tuesday because
Why?
I was like rushing to get in the Zoom call, and then like it wasn't working. I'm like, oh shoot, like what are we doing, right? But it's not even your fault because we had already, well, at least to my knowledge, I thought we had established that it was every other week. I just forgot. So I'm like,
It was my fault. I should have
oh
communicated
my.
better because I was in my living room and I forgot what day it was. I'm serious, y'all. When you got a full, okay, I'm a cybersecurity engineer, a full-time dad. I've got 2 girls who are schooling from home, and even though that's not an excuse, but I thought
Oh,
it
that's
was
a lot.
Wednesday. I thought it was Wednesday, and then I looked at my calendar and I'm like, all my phones were on silent. My phone was on silent. I'm like, wait a minute, I'm supposed to be in a meeting, and that was 30 minutes ago. Then I looked at GroupMe and I saw it was on silent, and I'm like, oh my God, I messed up, but again, I apologize, guys. That was
No,
me.
you're fine. I just was
dropped the
like,
ball.
wait, are we meeting? Like, am I tripping? I was freaking out. I'm not gonna lie. Like,
Well, at first we thought we were supposed to meet every week, but then we
yeah,
saw in the form that
I
he
thought it
put we
was
can
2
either meet
hours
one.
per week.
Yeah, well,
Yeah,
you're
he was
right.
like, you can meet 1 hour every week or 2 hours every 2 weeks, and I think we decided on 2 hours every 2 weeks.
Yeah,
Yeah.
and I don't mind. It's like I definitely wish everyone would have been free today, and I think if possible we need to revise the scheduling just so that
Mhm.
everyone's like on one accord. Like I think 4 people are literally like working. Like I don't go to work on days that we have this, and I know
Okay.
that's not an option for everyone. So I don't know if we can revise it to like a earlier time or later time when everyone's free. Now that like we've actually got a chance to talk and really like get to know each other. Because I love talking to you guys. Obviously, you guys are the main people that talk, but I do want to, get opinions and input from everyone. Like the group's supposed to be 10 people.
Right.
So I do want to figure out like everyone's schedule so that we can
Okay.
make that happen.
I got you. Well, I think it also helps that we decided to record the session for the benefit of those who unfortunately, despite our efforts, are not able to attend. I do also agree with you. I really would like to hear the opinions of other people that have not been very vocal in the meeting, and I know it's not, in some cases, not completely their fault.
Yeah.
I get it, but
I wonder if they'll get points taken off.
and that's the thing, because the professor can see everything we see,
Yeah.
everything we post. So if I recorded the conversations and I posted it, he can see it too. And so I hope that
And I think on one of those, the assignments that we turn in, we have to put down like who was active and who
Right.
wasn't.
Yeah.
yeah,
That's what I'm saying. Like, this is really sticky because, like, I know, like the professor has like not a mole, but like someone like reporting back to him, and it's really sticky because, like, I don't care to know who it is. It could be someone here, someone in the group chat, but it's like for the people during this time, like that obviously we have COVID and everything going on, like, and they seriously, genuinely can't make it. It's like they're going to get points taken off, and because I think that is like a part of the grade. Like, you have to partake in a dialogue. It's not just turning in your notes or your annotations. Like, you literally have to discuss. So I just hope they don't get points taken off, because I know it's going to be devastating, especially if they did the work.
yeah,
And he doesn't. I
yeah.
don't think he's the type of professor to be like based off of how he was talking in on the crime website. Like, in even the first quiz that we took, it was like, I am not going to blame da 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 because I didn't finish the assignment. Like, you guys remember the initial quiz we took for his class?
That
Condescending.
syllabus
I didn't
quiz.
I didn't hear what you said.
I said very condescending.
Yes, super condescending. I just didn't
Well,
want to
you know
say
what
that,
I'll
but
say though?
um,
I think once we get the grades back for this assignment, it will kind of set the tone for what we're supposed to be doing, how we're supposed to be doing it, how do you get a better grade, how to relate to him or not. And it's a good thing that he does drop the lowest grade.
uh-huh.
So even if we have some opportunities that we missed here, maybe either because we didn't gel well with him, or maybe we had a rough start like I did, at least we know that the worst one could be the first one. And
Yeah.
then moving forward, everything else is gravy. So that's at least something that is very clear. Because I was going to send him an email, honestly, say, hey, look, bro, I am not doing well with this reading. I'm just behind. But I'm like,
Yeah,
wait
but
a
I
minute,
think it
don't,
even says
yeah.
like message the forum before emailing them, and I
Mhm.
hate that dynamic. I'm not gonna lie.
Well, I
It
mean,
just
he's
doesn't.
saying if it is something that you can ask in the forum that is not private, ask
Uh-huh.
it there first. But if
Okay.
it's something that you can't share that's kind of private, don't post it in the forum, email him. But if you
Okay.
may
All right.
email him
All
on
right.
some
Good. Good.
question that
Good.
you could ask in the forum that's general
Yeah, I
that
can
everyone,
see how that could be annoying. I just
yeah,
was like, when I read it weeks ago, obviously, like way before we even had our first meeting, and I just
mhm.
remember like seeing that he didn't, you know, want emails or want you to email him. But thanks for clearing that up. He probably just doesn't want the random, pointless emails.
Yeah, yeah,
You guys want me to say my last thing before we end,
sure.
or my thing, my
Oh
whatever it's
yeah,
called?
you never did your passage.
Yep.
Yeah, we still have like
So it is on what page? Page, I think it's 223. Let me make sure. Yeah, page 223. It says, although a million black men can be found in prisons and jails, public acknowledge. I can't speak English. Like, that's crazy. Public acknowledgement of the role of the criminal justice system in disappearing black men is surprisingly rare. Sorry if I messed up like the comprehension of that statement, because my English is bad. But basically, they're saying that black men are so-called disappearing and whatnot, and a lot of people noticed it, but they rarely point to the justice system as a reason for why. I just picked that one because I mean, it's true. Like, a lot of people don't acknowledge, like, they'll they'll acknowledge that the black man is in the, I love like analogies for things, so I'm trying to figure out a better way to say it. But they'll acknowledge that something, like let's say you do something wrong, like you'll acknowledge the problem, but you won't acknowledge that you are a part of it or you contributed to it. And not saying the general public or society, but people in general will make statements like, "Oh, there's no black man in the home," but it's like, why? Like there's that stereotype. Like I see it on Twitter all the time. My friends have used it, like, "Oh, like your dad went to go get milk from the store and never came back," like, and like there's literally like a known stereotype for that in the black community, but it's like, where are these men actually going? And it's true that, like, while I definitely have heard like black kids say like, "Oh, my dad's in jail, da da da," like for some people it's a stamp of honor, like, "Oh, my dad's in jail." I don't hear a lot of people acknowledge it, like that there's a quintillion black men locked up right now that literally can't do anything, and once they get out, like they might go back to prison. They can't, they're not getting married, they can't get jobs, they're not voting. So it's like they literally like don't exist, even when they're trying to, I forgot the specific word, but get reacclimated to society, like, you know,
Integrated.
um, yeah, integrated back into society.
Well, I think it's largely due to the indifference. A lot of people feel like, okay, I had to pull myself up by my bootstraps. I'm black too. If I
Yeah,
didn't do drugs, if I didn't get involved with gangs, why should I feel sorry for you? Yes, it's hard, but we all have it tough, so you should be able. But the truth of the matter is, everybody's circumstances are a little different. You see what I'm
yeah,
saying? And sometimes in the middle of our struggle, in the middle of our success, or whatever it is, because sometimes we forget, and we get indifferent. I mean, I find that, in some, I could even say that I might even be guilty of that. And sometimes how I remind myself is I volunteer. And I volunteer in my neighborhood, but every now and then I'll go to the food bank that's like 45 minutes in the other direction in a neighborhood that I grew up in as a teenager that's fallen on tough times. And I just tell them I'm a student. I don't tell them I'm an engineer. They don't need to know, I'll take the bus or whatever. And I'll join them, on the farm and, pull some weeds, rebuild a park or something. And then you get to see people where they live. You get to see, when you're there for like 3 hours and you see the same homeless guy walk past you 3 times, wearing the, and you get to see what's going on, and what you're doing actually impacts them. And each time you go to volunteer, you can see and check, okay, well, I did this 6 months ago, and 6 months later, there's an improvement, or it got worse. It starts to become real to you,
yeah.
So I think that the more involved we are in our communities, it becomes more real. But the less involved we are with our neighbors and our
Detached.
community, exactly, the more detached we are from what's going on, and the more indifferent we feel. And then we just pat ourselves on the back and say, I'm not a bad person. But I'm not saying that you're a bad person for being indifferent, but being indifferent is a part of the problem, you
Yeah,
know,
yeah,
because we
yeah.
need everybody, you know,
Yeah.
we need everybody, you know.
Nah, I definitely have found times where in my younger days that, I mean, I'm still a baby, but when I was in, like, middle school, starting high school, where I was super indifferent, like I had a very pessimistic viewpoint. I was like, well, why are you pathetic? Like I was like really just a jerk at, points of time in my life. Um, because, some of the people that were in these bad situations had harmed me. And I stopped thinking about, I stopped being empathetic and putting myself, um, in their shoes, and, what were they thinking when they did this and whatnot. And I love what you said, like being involved and seeing it, it gives you a whole different perspective. It really does. Like I have a job right now. I'm in a warehouse. I'm doing it before I, start working at Walmart. Um, and I literally work with like, it's either like the poorest of the poor, black and whites, or immigrants. Like most of the people cannot speak English, and I feel bad. Like I literally like they'll be telling me or asking me stuff, and I literally I don't know how to. So I'll like try and look up Google Translate like an idiot, like literally just so I can make them feel more comfortable. Like, hey, this is how you do it, or what do you want me to do? But you know, having breaks with these people and getting to talk to them and like hear their different stories and stuff, I'm like, wow, like, it makes sense. Like, and I even think back to, last semester and even before when I was learning about psychology, sociology, interpretive framework, like these people, you gotta think like some of these people were abused as children. Some of these people, I have cousins where like, if you're soft, you get beat on. Like there's some people that are literally from childhood indoctrinated into these gangs. You know what I mean? Like instantly. Like that is your lifestyle. So it's not even a thought for them to graduate. It's not even a thought for them to get a job. It's not even a thought for them to go to college one day or have a real job. Like some of these people are literally like, some girls are beat and like, you need to, by the time you've developed a bit more, you hit puberty, you need to be on this corner. Like, and it's so sad and it makes you extremely angry. But so when I hear the contrasting side, just blaming these people, like, don't get me wrong, you do see these losers on social media that are wannabe gangster that didn't come from that, yet they want to live that life. Oh, I'm selling this, I'm doing this, or I'm shooting this. It's like, bro, you aren't even like, you were watching Ben 10 just like me. Like, calm down, bro. Like you were not in that lifestyle, you know. But the other side of it,
I
is these
fully
people are
understand.
literally indoctrinated into this from a young age.
Yeah. I mean, I used to make a lot of excuses. Oh, I don't have time. Oh, I'm working today. Oh, I'm too busy. Oh, I got to. So what I started doing, I make sure that every year, I make time. Heck, I found out that the company I work for actually will pay you 6 hours in a year to go volunteer. And they will literally write you a check for $500 to the charity of your choice every year, whether you do it or you don't. And that was when I stopped making excuses. And what I do is I don't just volunteer manual labor, I also volunteer brain power. Some people are one conversation away from blowing their brains out. Some people are one opportunity away from making it in life or quitting. I ran into this lady. I was introduced to her by someone else who knew her, who I did some work for. And this woman had bright ideas, but she couldn't afford, to have the right people to help her get that idea off the ground. And it turned out she just needed a website, and she just needed someone who understood the technology and to show her how to take her idea and put it on the stage. And I was like, you know what? You can't afford to pay me to do what you need done, but I'll volunteer my time to do it for you. And she's been in business for the last 3 years, and that's her meal ticket. And now I'm thinking, well, if I didn't help her out, what would have happened? She probably would have given up on the idea, and she'd be back on on the grinder. Who knows? So a lot of times we wait for government, we wait for the community, and we forget what we can do as individuals for your brother, your cousin, your nephew, your neighbor, the guy that you met at the train station that just needed a ride. I'm not saying go crazy but there are ways to do it safely. I joined United Way, and every now and then I'll go on there and Hands on Atlanta. I joined Hands on Atlanta. I'll go on there and look who's looking for volunteers. What are they looking for specifically? Would I be useful to you? Do you have enough people? Would I just be an extra baggage? So there are lots of ways one can get involved. Some people, their thing is to join in a protest, to help people sign up to protest. Some people is to make sure that everybody gets water when they go protesting. Some people is to make sure that they don't get violent or keep them away from the violence. There's so much that we can do as individuals to help in solving these bigger problems and bigger issues that you don't need to be elected into office to actually do it. But if we all, let indifference set in and you don't do something, well, eventually that problem that you're indifferent about is going to come knocking it It could be at your front door. It could be your cousin. It could be your sister. It could be your daughter, you know. So, but I'm just gonna cut it off there. I know we've been on this one now for like 2.5 hours, but I really appreciate y'all's time, and I'm gonna rack it out and try to get all my annotations out and everything. Carmen, don't forget to put your thoughts on your passage. I noticed you posted your passage on the document. Yeah, and
Got
if
it.
everyone can do that, it will make it easier, because in the middle of talking about all this, sometimes it's difficult to capture exactly the essence of what the person was trying to
Yeah.
capture in their thoughts. And I want to make sure that it reflects your wording and what you were thinking, and not just what I got from it. And then we can put in our own words when we turn in our documentation on Friday. But Deja, I don't know if you can hear me. I am recording this, and I will post it once when I'm done with it tonight.
Were you about to say something, Carmen? Could you unmuted your mic before I did? Were you about to add something?
Oh no, I thought that this went till 4, so I was gonna bring up something else. But if we're leaving, then that's cool.
I think we're
No,
supposed to
go
do
ahead.
2 hours, but nobody's like, I wouldn't mind staying till 4,
Yeah, I'm
but
fine. I'll just go grab
nobody's
some of my spaghetti I was cooking when this conversation started.
Nah,
Y'all don't
go
mind
ahead.
seeing me spaghetti and meatballs?
No, I don't mind.
Yeah, sure. Let's stay on.
Basically, this is kind of current that I just heard about today, but back in 2018, Florida passed a law giving criminals who did not commit murder or I think sexual assault the right to vote. So we have all of these newly released people and this voting population in Florida, which is a battleground state. And then basically Robert or DeSantis, whoever the government is, I'm pretty sure it's DeSantis, that's the governor of Florida. He passed a law saying that you have to pay all your court fines before you're able to vote. But for some of these people, $1,000 is not there for them. Like they don't have it's a tax. Is basically what Republican DeSantis implemented on this newly released population. And so Bloomberg is donating a lot of money because he's worth billions of dollars to help these people pay off their poll taxes to where they can go and vote. And this was just announced, I think, a couple days ago.
Did you say,
But
who'd you say?
now, Bloomberg, Michael Bloomberg,
Oh,
the guy,
okay.
he was also raised. He's donating a lot of money to basically pay off these people's taxes. But the Republicans are saying that it's cherry picking as far as he's basically paying for these people's votes because he was a Democratic presidential nominee, or not nominee, but he was running for president.
Mhm.
And it's just I have a quote here. This isn't an exercise in democracy. This is cherry picking votes, offering something of value for them. So now Bloomberg might be subject to a criminal investigation because of his donations and work that he's trying to do in Florida. And I don't think that he's the thing is that most of these people who are getting these benefits are going to be people of color because that's who the incarceration system, like that's who they target. And so to say that he's cherry picking is just really the Republicans admitting that they did wrong by putting them in there in the first place. That they
That's
did
right.
targeting them.
And that's why we should pay attention when they're up for re-election to make sure that we point out who those people are and make sure they don't get re-elected. And maybe Bloomberg should be investigated so that it could come out to see if anything does come out of it. So we can say, okay, well, y'all had your day in court. You didn't do anything illegal. Y'all now need to go sit down.
I think it's even hard to like figure out what his intentions are, you know? Like I think it shouldn't it does matter. It really does matter, but in my opinion, like I hope that the inmates or the people that have been released are smart enough to know, you know, and just figure out what they're voting for on their own. Like in my opinion, like he could have the most slimiest reason in the world. Like there is an incentive because they will, you know, they might possibly, oh, well, this guy did this, let me vote for him. But that shouldn't matter. You know what I mean? Like he's changing their lives for one way or another, even if it is bad. And that's why I say like it's your job then to do the research into what you want to do, who you want to vote for, their policies and whatnot. So it could be he literally could be right now being like, I'm gonna pay off these idiots fine so they'll vote for me, da da da. He could be doing that, or he could be like, I want to change these people's lives. You know,
Yeah.
we don't know. We can't really say. Like even if
And
they
that's why
conduct an
he should get
investigation, it's like,
investigated.
but
They should
still,
investigate.
how would you? Most of these politicians, like I don't want to get into conspiracies and all that, but most of these politicians are like professional liars. Like even if they don't lie, they know how to if they need to. You know what I mean? Not saying he does, but I'm saying like, how would you really know? Like even if they conduct an investigation, right? You can't go in his brain and tell him what his intentions are. You can't like if you give me money, I can't say, oh, you're only doing this so in the future, 5 years from now. Like I don't know, you know, if that's what
Well, the
your
only way
intentions
they
are.
can prove anything is if they find evidence that indicates that he had any kind of malicious intent or whatever it is that he was going to be benefiting from helping them. They could make that case, but good
But I
luck
feel
with
like
that.
it even then, right? I'm definitely like I think it's an amazing thing. I'm not advocating for him in any way, but I do think what he's doing is great. In any way, right? Unless we find is it really illegal? And then unless we find an email or a text or this man took a ink pen or ink feather from the 1600s and wrote, "Oh, I'm releasing or I'm paying for these inmates just to, you know, like are we would we really know what his intentions are is what I'm saying. Like I feel like the Republicans or whoever in general, like I don't like the oh I'm Republican, oh I'm Democrat, but really like she said, like
Well,
it shows the heart or their intentions initially, you know, with making that I forgot who you said earlier who made them have to pay the fines, but
It was Governor DeSantis. And I think that if we put this into a different perspective, let's say Bloomberg donated money and hired a bunch of people to drive people to the polls who don't have access to transportation or
exactly,
they're
same
eligible
thing.
again, not the car. Would it be this big? I don't think it would be because Republicans haven't put down specific laws banning people from helping other people get to polls, like transportation wise.
you don't
But they
think
And
it
hated
would
it
be?
though. They hated it though when it does happen, because
exactly, like
they put in a lot of money and effort into suppressing the vote, gerrymandering, and trying to keep people from registering and people showing up to vote or voting. Period. So in essence, what Bloomberg is doing is reversing a lot of work that they did to make sure that people of a certain class can't vote
yeah,
because they're not going
right.
to vote for them anyway.
I'm
So
curious to
I
know
get why they mad. I get why they mad.
I'm curious to know, Carmen, do you think you said you don't think it would be the same backlash?
No, not at all, because that is such a common way to help people during the
Uh-huh.
election is to donate your time or to have organizations already there in place to get people to the polls. Um, and I think the reason why they're claiming of this cherry picking as in like, oh, he's picking the people who are gonna vote Democrat and he's paying for those fines. Well, that's assuming that the entire prison population wants to vote Democrat. And if
Mm-hmm.
they do want to vote Democrat, why do you think that is? Because they don't like
Mm.
Republicans. They don't like the policy that put them in prison.
Yeah.
And besides Bill Clinton, he's the only like Democratic person who was super tough on crime. It's not trendy to be tough on crime anymore. It was back in the day, but it's not a trend anymore. That's not something you
Yeah.
really. I mean, now that Black Lives Matter is coming back in like into the mainstream media,
And
I
we
feel
see a
like.
lot of domestic terrorism, so I think that's definitely about to start becoming a thing again.
But the claim that he's cherry picking votes is baseless,
Yeah.
and
That
they're
is
just scared
definitely
that
baseless.
they're just scared because they know that the Republicans know that those inmates have a better chance of voting Democrat rather than Republican.
I think I
And
agree.
Florida is such an important state in the election. and with the Electoral College.
Now,
I think I
about the
agree with
electoral
what you're
college,
saying.
with the electoral college, do you think that that needs to be reformed or just abolished completely? Because the electoral college, so you can have the majority vote and still lose. That kind of, I don't get
Uh,
that.
I wanna. Before we go into
Yeah,
this next one, real quick, I wanted to say I agree with what you said, Carmen, but 2% of me thinks like there would still be idiots that are like, oh well, he's only driving them because, you know, like
absolutely.
I feel like there's still gonna be idiots that are like that would move from the cherry picking into like, oh well, he's driving Democrats or he's not giving Republicans that need a ride, you know, like I feel like a part of I get what you're saying though. Like it wouldn't be as bad as it is now. It definitely wouldn't be. But I do
Mhm.
think like some idiots would still be like, "Oh, well, he's only picking up," you know.
Right.
But we could go back. We could go back into the other one.
Law just about is a polling tax. Like, I know it's not specifically a polling tax. It's a hidden one where you have to pay off all of these debts in order to
To be able to vote.
right.
Yeah.
It's preventing them. It's just another barrier. They finally got through one barrier, and there it is again. There's
Just
another
like voting, just like voting ID. What voting ID? What ID is accepted in order for you to be able to vote? I'm like,
it's just another barrier right there. And Berg said, all right, I'll take care of this barrier. You already got the other one. And Republicans are freaking out about it.
yeah, I know. Well, so what do y'all think about the electoral college? Do you think that is something that should stand, or do you think it should be reformed, or do you think it needs to be removed?
I think I need to be educated more on it, but from my current education on it and what I know of it, I think it needs to be reformed or removed.
I think I agree
Yeah,
with you.
I
I
think
don't
it
think
needs to
it's
be
right.
reformed.
Yeah. If it can be
But
reformed, I'm open to it. But because it doesn't make sense to me that the people choose who they want, and you say, well, 10 people have more votes than 100 people because,
This district is more, influential than the
yeah,
other.
it
Yeah,
doesn't make sense to me.
definitely
so
weird.
my education on it is that it was put in place in the Constitution in order for our feelings to get in the way of who's president. So it's a way to take away bias and things like that from our presidential election. And as far as who gets what power, that all depends on the census count of the counties. So if a county has more population than another county, that county is going to get more electoral votes. And in total, that adds up to um, it's just a way for population to have, or population density rather, to have a say in the election. But I don't think that that should be what happens. I don't think that it should be spread out in counties. I think that rather it should be just by state. So depending on how much population your state has should give you more or less rather than your county, because some counties are super rural and we want those rural counties to still matter. But then you also have I just don't think the population density should be a part of it except for the total state population, because it gives, I mean, you saw in the book it talked about how the new 3/5 clause and how they're building all these high-tech prisons in rural counties, and now that population has grown and it's gaining more political power in the electoral college because of the population increase, and that's directly taking the population out from poorer areas. And like that's just really messed up. So I think we need to take counties completely out of it, and we just need to have it specifically for the state. And we also don't need to be putting police or, well, prison population. That's the hard thing, because you want the higher density your county has, the more federal funds it gets. So we obviously need federal funds to run our prisons, because we want them to be kept up, we want them to be sanitary. But I think there has to be a different way for how to count incarcerated people in the Electoral College besides just transferring them all over to one area instead of having their population count. Go ahead.
I think that if we're going to count the prison population in census to determine the electoral college, we need to decide whether or not it is right for them not to have the right to vote.
It shouldn't happen at all. It shouldn't happen at all, and here's why. Prisons are a trillion times worse than anything we've seen on social media and anything we've seen news articles about. Here's why. You can literally get away with so much in prisons. There's hundreds of thousands of testimonies you can find online. You can find cases that have been swept under the rug, or people have been paid off not to say anything. Cases that are going on right now where people are literally killed, injured, not taken to a hospital, and they'll walk by and count you like you're in that cell every day. You will be, especially some of these people, some of these minorities, they don't have families that contact them. They're not getting mail. You know, they done background checks on these people. They know their relatives are like across the world, not giving a flying, you know. These people are literally sitting, rotting in the back of some of these prisons. Some of them are in hospitals. Some of them have been beaten so badly that they're literally mentally retarded because they have been beaten so badly, whether it's by other inmates or the correctional officers, whatever, right? And they'll still walk by and count you like you're sitting in that cell every day, like nothing has happened. And like you said, these people can't even vote. So no, you're not counting the prison. What? The population of the people in prison? No way.
So
No, sir.
if I'm going to be counted, and if I'm going to be counted to determine how much money comes from the federal government and how many electoral votes the states has,
You have no power, no access.
I should have the right to vote.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Prisons are bad. Don't get me started on prisons. Prisons are some of the worst places. Like people are literally getting killed, arms broken, and nothing to say. I'm sure you guys have heard of women giving birth in chains. Like, I don't care. I know this sounds crazy. But for the baby's sake, I don't care if this woman stabbed a guy. Like, she does not need it for the baby's sake. Why is she getting shackled, throat, arms? She's giving birth. What do you mean you fear for your life? She's giving birth. What are you doing? You said what?
I said, how is she gonna hurt anybody when she's in that much
pain? That's what I'm saying. Like these women, like imagine how much of an animal. And like I care about animals, right? So, but I won't compare them to humans. Some people get pissed off about that. But like I don't care. Like this is a entity like giving birth. She's not at that point. It shouldn't even be in your. Oh, this is an inmate. You know what I mean? Yeah. Like there's literally, I think there's almost no accounts of like a woman like trying to assault someone, an inmate trying to assault someone before, during, or after pregnancy or trying to escape. You know what I mean? Like these women are literally being shackled, thrown onto these beds. Like, don't get me started on the sexual assault that happens in prison, whether it's to men or to women by these officers that literally go there. Like they'll have crazy stuff on their background checks. They literally go there because they know they can do almost anything they want. Up until recently, people have been trying to investigate more and get into it more, but the crime, the rape, the sexual assault, the murders that go on in prison alone is like, it is disgusting. I don't even know how else to describe it. Like I really feel for like when people.
They're the most vulnerable population.
Yeah, you have no rights. And people, and the sad thing is, I'm not even gonna say people don't know, because a lot of people do know. They just don't care. Like you have become this outcast. to society, and it's so sad. Like the stories I heard alone, let alone like the actual statistical data that I took criminal justice last semester, and like my professor actually laid out everything, and specifically in Atlanta, like it's scary. Like the amount of people that get murdered, molested, and these aren't just inmates. These are literally people with badges that are
Yeah,
going home every night to their families like nothing happened. It's like it's so sad.
for sure.
I love what Deja just said. Like a lot of these men, they get raped in prison and molested by, like I said, by other inmates. And the imagine even a different dynamic, right? I'm sorry to like go on this long tangent, but we have to talk about it now. It's even a different dynamic. That's why I was like horrified when I was reading the thing about the officer that was raping women. It's a different dynamic when it's a just a man and a woman or a man and a man. But imagine a person in power with a taser, a gun, a bulletproof vest, and let alone like the women that go through it. Like not only do they have that, but they could be physically dominant. Like imagine the fear and the dynamic there. Like that is so, and then this happens to some of, like she said, that some of these, it happens to these black men. Then they come home, they take it out on their sons, their daughters, their girlfriends,
Right.
their boyfriends, whatever, because they had no power. They were powerless. So now that they feel like they're free, or whenever they're let out, they're on probation, like they're hurting and they want to take that anger and frustration out on. So these men are literally getting out of prison. People are like, "Why are they so mad? What's wrong with you?" It's like, do you know what I just went through?
Yeah.
Some
It's
of the
like
women
that.
that like they hate men, like I understand that, like they've been abused. What do you expect? I'm sorry, I'm done.
Well, I mean, I appreciate Deja's contribution. I know she's at work, and it is true. Male and female, they go through hell. And when you think about it, uh, prison is not just physical; it can also be a state of mind. I have a friend that she had a baby in a homeless shelter. What happened was she ran away from her foster parent because she was being punished because she stayed up late after curfew, and she stole her stepbrother's car with her boyfriend. And when the boyfriend went to get gas, when they were in Georgia, he got arrested because he had priors. And when he got locked up, she found out she was pregnant, and she had that baby on the floor in a homeless shelter. And it was there she got caught up in addiction, and she's been trying to rebuild her life for the last 5 years, and she's just now starting to see some progress. So, and she's not even in a physical cell. So, and I watched her go, transform from seemingly normal to getting into that lower class that the book describes, and getting caught up in that system and trying to claw her way back to normalcy again and what it's like. So now for someone who's been locked up in the system physically, I can't even say that I can imagine what it's like for men and for women. But I think I saw a little bit of it with my friend, and like I said, she wasn't even in jail. She was just in the homeless shelter. And I look at it and I'm like, her daughter is only 3 years younger than mine. And I'm like, when she told me that she had a baby in the homeless shelter, because there was a lady she let in stay with her in the how this government she's in this I forgot what they call them. Um, you know how the government will give you home assistance where you can get a home from the government. What's it called?
Housing,
Um, yeah.
public
So
housing.
she
Yeah.
public housing. She got public housing, and then she had this woman living with her. And I'm like, where'd you meet this lady? She's like 10 years older than you. Oh, she said this was the lady that helped me when I was giving birth in the homeless shelter. I was like, wait, what? I thought you had your baby in Texas. She was like, no, this happened in Atlanta. And the guy, the father of he's been in jail since then. He did his time in Atlanta and then got transferred back to Texas. The child is about 7 years old now. So she's been dealing with that for the last 7 years. So I understand. I get it. I see it. And a lot of times we're guilty, or like I said, we're guilty of being indifferent because we don't know anyone who's going through it. But when you get to know someone, you really know them, you can point out where they're messing up, but you can also see where the system in place is, disappropriately affecting them versus you, if you're in a better place, you know.
Yeah.
So it's been a great conversation, guys. Once again,
Hold on, hold on, hold on, hold on. Are you about to leave?
me, no. Once everybody's ready to leave, yeah.
I wanted Carmen looked like she was about to hit us with some heat, and then you went on and started something.
Oh,
I didn't want to interrupt you, but she looked like she was about to hit us with some heat, so I wanted to see that before we dipped out today.
No, I wasn't saying anything. My dog's screaming at me because he has to go pee again.
Okay, I got you. Yeah, just to, I guess before we leave, just to again touch on that, like the prison thing is really bad, and I try not to like. That's why I get upset about this stuff. Like we said, like a wall, a literal wall got justice before a human soul, or just a human in general. Um, that makes me upset. But the atrocities that occur in prison, like it's literally like unfathomable. Like, and that's why again when I understand so much. Like I don't understand because I haven't went through it personally. But like when I see like whether it's women online or I see this stuff that women like after they've uh been released from prison and stuff and like their outlook on the world, like I completely understand that because I've been powerless before and I know how little that made me feel. And I'm like 6'3", 200 something pounds, like a fighter. And if I could feel that, I could imagine someone that literally like what just was abused for no reason or just like I couldn't even imagine it, especially at the hands of law enforcement, someone who was supposed to protect you, someone who was supposed to serve you, that was literally created to serve and protect you, assaulting you, making you feel powerless like every day. Like I completely understand it, like a trillion percent. And it's crazy that it goes through people's minds to even commit an act or atrocity against another entity. Like that's crazy to me that that's even a thought to like let me do this. Like this is a great thing to do with my time, like it's
I think
pathetic.
I can do.
You said what?
It's something that I guess when you're in that position and you have that mindset, at that point you're saying to yourself, this is something I can take and get away with it.
Yeah, and that's I hope I know like one of our books is gonna, I think it deals with sexual assault and stuff like that, and we're gonna have some of the craziest talks, I swear, especially if we have like a full uh panel of people because it's like something very huge for me. Like I lost my grandmother recently back in 2017 to cancer. And after she passed, I got a chance to look at her diary and stuff, and like I found out that she was assaulted, and like no one knew. Like, and she wrote it in her diary years and years ago, like before I was born. And it hurt me to my like I had always been disturbed by it, like because I felt that feeling of powerlessness, but never to that degree. So I always been disturbed from it. Even like I remember this girl in high school made me watch is it 13 Reasons Why or something like that? Is that, and there was like a rape scene. I remember feeling so enraged, like disturbingly like mad, right? And so when I read that, let alone like finding out it was someone I knew, like I was hurt so bad. And so when I see this stuff online, like I try and be objective and like get all the facts and stuff. Um yeah. Deja. I try and be objective and not subjective and get all the facts around it before I accuse someone. But as soon as I have substantial data, it's red lock on target. Like you have to be destroyed. Even if like it's not physical, you have to be destroyed because it's not murder. And like even murder in some circumstances I think makes sense. Like you're defending yourself, you're defending your children. But rape, no, there's never an excuse. There's never sexual assault, never an excuse ever at all. No, sir. So I could only imagine what happens to these women and oh my goodness, in prison. Terrible.
Yeah, and strangely enough, believe it or not, it happens to men too.
A lot, yeah. And then they come home and they feel like they have to be tough Tony, and you wonder why all these people are getting murdered, shot. It's like as soon as people don't realize, like a lot of things can make you relive moments of victimization. Like it could literally be a little boy talking back to you, and it'll snap you right back into that moment of victimization. And you're like, and you release all that anger and rage that you couldn't take out then onto that person. So you see a lot of these black men committing suicide, killing other men, like because they've been emasculated and they feel like everything that they've staked their pride on has been taken from them. So I definitely agree with that notion. There's plenty of men like that won't admit it.
Well, on that note, again, personal responsibility. We have to hold ourselves accountable, and in turn, hold people around us accountable. You know, and so we can make the world a better place. Yeah.
Yes, sir.
All right, guys. I have
I'll
to
see you.
go on and prepare for my other class.
Man, I have like 42 assignments due tomorrow. I'm not gonna lie.
Yeah,
Oh
man.
my goodness. It was a good talk though. Always a good talk.
Yeah.
I wish that class was the way it was before coronavirus, where it was a Tuesday, Thursday thing or Monday, Wednesday thing.
Oh yeah.
Now you're responsible not just for the work, but making sure you get it and you make the time for it, which is just an additional challenge. But
Yeah, especially
God,
like when it's like I don't need it laid out for me, but like when you have that one person in class you sit next to, like you don't even gotta ask, you just see like maybe they have assignment due on this time, and like or your
they'll
professor
remind
might
you.
give you a reminder like, but like when you just see the dates and then like you're in a week plus you're prioritizing other stuff and then you see that it's September 25th already. Okay, like
Reminder is due at 5 p.m., not 12. So
yeah,
get it done
yeah.
by 5.
Okay.
For sure.
Oh, wait a
Appreciate
minute.
it.
Say that again. It's due at what time?
It's due by 5 tomorrow, 5 p.m. tomorrow. So don't
5
wait
p.m.
until
tomorrow?
Yeah.
right.
Oh.
It's
Not
due by
12.
5 p.m. So if it's after 5 p.m., even if it's on the same day, it's considered late. I don't know
wow.
why people decide to
Why?
do that.
That's so evil.
Really
That's so evil.
I mean, why not midnight? Why
Really
you gotta be 5 p.m.?
He knows that's evil. He knows it's evil. He
I
knows.
hate when professors do that because now you got micromanaging every minute of my day.
Yes. Yes. I had a
That's what I'm
professor
doing
my
right
first
now.
semester
I'm
that made
setting my
stuff due at
reminder.
10:59.
Yeah.
Like just to be a jerk, it was due at 10:59.
Like you're
Like
not
an
helping
hour
me.
before.
I promise.
Like I don't understand why.
All right, y'all. I gotta go walk my dog again.
All right,
It was
guys.
like 2 weeks.
All right, peace out, beautiful people. Have a nice
Bye.
day.
All right, guys. Talk to you later.